my name's Donya and I wanted to share my story about my condition called intracranial hypotension. Intracranial hypertension is where you have a tissue called the dura that surrounds your brain and spinal cord, and it holds within that spinal fluid. And what happens is sometimes there's a tear or hole in that dura and it causes your spinal fluid to leak out, which then causes your brain to sag in the base of your skull, causing excruciating headaches. And one of the main characteristics of the headache is it's positional, so as you can see I'm laying down and that's where I'm most comfortable, but if I were to stand up for a period of time, and at the moment that period of time is only like a minute, it can then create a really bad headache. And it causes me to feel sick, dizzy, pains in my eyes, tinnitus in my ears, and ultimately the first thing I want to do is just try and get down and get my head down as low as I can. So it all started about a year ago when I was pregnant with my first child, Fion, who is perfectly normal and happy at the moment. I'll just show you a picture of her. Through 15 weeks I've been suffering with really bad morning sickness. I couldn't eat properly and it was just hell for me. So after that 15 weeks I actually started to get a bit of respite and I thought, oh my gosh, I'm turning a corner here. I can eat a full meal, get out and about and not worry about being sick out when I'm out. And but then over that 16th week I started to get a bit of a headache, and the only way I can describe it was a motion headache. So I'd move, I'd stop and I'd get this pulsing in my head. As the week went on, it just became worse and worse and worse, and ultimately it resulted in me being in my bed, and I could not get out of bed for 4 or 5 weeks. I had multiple calls to the out-of-hours doctor who gave me different medication. I've been to my doctors through work in sick bay because I'm in the Navy, and those doctors were saying, no, it's pregnancy, migraine, and just take these painkillers, you'll be fine. And eventually I spoke to my military doctor and she took me seriously. The neurologist who then diagnosed me with what she thought was intracranial hypertension. She recommended that I get an MRI scan of my head and also a lumbar puncture just to confirm the leak. The MRI scan, which came back as normal, and I also had a lumbar puncture that my opening pressure was 2, which apparently it should have been 15. I was in excruciating pain, and worse still, they nicked a nerve in my back. I couldn't move because my back was spasming.
We are proud individuals, living for the city.
And the nurse came and marched into the room, forced me to try and stand up, and I was crying in pain. And then she was like, oh yeah, maybe we'll keep you in for one more night. And by that point I was just like, I don't think these guys are taking me seriously. So I ended up discharging myself almost because I knew that my family understood how I was feeling and was able to look after me a bit better than what I was being looked after at the hospital. So I went home, like being sick in the car, like all the way home. I was in a really bad way, but I managed to get into bed. Had my fiance washing and feeding me, give me bed baths.
The rise over love, over hate. Through this
it was awful, and my neurologist came back from holiday and then realised that I'd been sent home. I was outraged and said I need to come back in. She arranged me to have a blood patch, and when I had that done I felt amazing. I was able to take my glasses off straight away and I could sit up. Result.
That life left dripping down the walls of a dream that cannot breathe in its harsh reality. Mass confusion.
6 weeks later I needed another blood patch because I got a cold and the coffin must have ruptured with the previous clot, and I was absolutely devastated. The rest of my pregnancy went without incident until I got into labour. I was in labour for 2 days at home before I went into hospital, and then I had an epidural followed by a spinal block to have a caesarean, as I only got to 5.5 centimetres. But Fionn was born lovely and healthily.
You just got to hold on. You just got to hold on.
It's so nice to get Fionn home and be a family and look after and breastfeed. But 12 days afterwards I got another headache and went in for blood patch number 3. As an outpatient I had an MRI scan of my head, neck and spine, and that all came back as normal. A month ago now, Sophia was 5 months old now, and I got another headache. Yet again I recognised the signs and symptoms, and my neurologist wanted me to go into a neurological hospital this time, so she's admitted me to Southampton. And I had an MRI of my spine, I had an MRI of my brain with contrast. They still didn't find a leak. My neurologist had quite a fight trying to get the anaesthetist to actually then go ahead and do another blood patch, because the anaesthetists weren't happy to do one unless they knew the source of the leak. I got treated with a blood patch. Now I'm currently laying on my settee, and it's a month later, and Fionn is now 6 months. And it's happened again. Just waiting for a hospital bed. Fingers crossed I'll hear something. I'll get a bed soon.